Welcome on stage to Greentech.LIVE. My name is Johann Siegel.
And my name is Jonas Waldenmeier.
Thank you so much for joining us, Erin. We had a couple of challenges to get onto that call, but I'm very hopeful you can see us and you can share a presentation. Erin, can you hear me?
Yes, hi Jochen.
Hey.
It's great to be here. I can hear you. I can see your background, Greentech.LIVE. I don't see the presentation yet.
Okay. We've met last year in Berlin. I don't remember if you recall the conversation, but I'm very happy to have you here on stage today with us and with my colleague Birdie. And
Hi.
And Jonas.
Hi there. Nice to meet you, Erin.
Oh, I see you now. Hi.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the airline industry today and the challenges ahead. And you have a couple of interesting projects. We want to hear about Synhelion. We want to hear about maybe fuel cell aviation and maybe fuel efficiency techniques and technologies. And we're very happy to have you here. And if you have a presentation, please go ahead, Erin.
Okay, so your team has the presentation and they're getting it ready.
Okay.
Yeah, so it should be playing in the background for you guys. I don't know if you see it yet, but I can start anyway. So yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned all of the issues that we have to solve and the very big challenge we have for aviation. We, as every other company, I think in Europe, we have to work towards net zero, and we have extremely difficult targets that we need to reach as an industry and also as a company. And for aviation, our industry is known as a hard to decarbonize industry, and this means that that we might not ever get to a stage where we're absolutely producing no carbon, but we need to have other methodologies in order to compensate for what we are doing. What we have is a very robust plan to basically reduce on every single aspect that we have power over, and then for the ones that we don't, to partner with companies that are able to reduce more or do other technologies in order to capture carbon to help us get to net zero at least. You guys will let me know if you have the presentation there, right?
Yeah, we can perfectly see the presentation. That's all right.
You can see it. Okay. So if you can go maybe to slide 3, then we can get started. So I have set up this discussion in terms of 5 major blocks. So the Lufthansa Group and probably as well the entire industry is focusing on different areas. We have, for us, extremely important sustainable aviation fuel. We have fleet renewal, which means buying really new aircraft, retrofitting the current aircraft that we have. We have flight ops efficiency, which is essentially known for you as IT projects to make our entire aviation business more efficient with the way that we fly, the routes that we take, how we plan our flights, which aircraft we take for which types of routes, and all of these things. And then we have the final block, which is offsetting. So working with companies who are able to offset the carbon that we are creating. Even though it's not our direct business, so it's something that we would buy into. If we go on to the next slide, I will explain a little bit more about sustainable aviation fuel and what this means for us. So when we talk about aviation, we have different future scenarios that we see as being possible. I'm sure that all of you in the audience have heard about electric aircraft and eVTOL and air taxis and all of this. So battery operated vehicles in the future could be possible with improvements to batteries, but it has to be exponential improvements. We think as an industry that this could become a reality for short haul, but it really has a limit in terms of range of the aircraft and also probably size of the aircraft. So electric, as being the first block of possibilities, is definitely something that we keep our eye on, and we're working with a lot of different startups and different technologies to monitor the situation of when it's going to tip that the battery technology becomes strong enough and robust enough to carry an aircraft which is able to carry more passengers, because our business is to carry like larger amounts of passengers and to connect hubs and cities together. So that is not off the table, but it's definitely something that we see as a limited scope for our entire business, because we operate all over the world. Then we have this in-between solution, or another potential solution, hydrogen. And hydrogen is essentially very, very far from coming true for our industry, but it is a very high potential technology stream that we are following extremely closely as well. And we expect, when we speak with different experts and when we have our own expertise, that hydrogen potentially will cover a medium range type of business operation, and maybe a medium size of aircraft, but not the largest ones. Or if you speak with MIT and their aviation department, they also think that because of the nature of hydrogen, it could be that this is suitable only for the extremely large aircraft. So this is all kind of a moving picture that we are very, very closely monitoring. And when I say closely monitoring, it is that we are speaking in detail on a technological and also operational level about what technologies could come, when, in which form, what would be the pros and cons, what are the complications with regards to servicing them, and what this means. But the third area, which is what we call a drop-in fuel, drop-in solution, is much more simplistic in a way, because you can just drop sustainable aviation fuel into the current fleet, and you don't need to build new infrastructure at airports, and you don't need to build and certify new technologies in terms of aircraft, which are not yet proven. So sustainable aviation fuel is already available, it's already existing. We have currently biogenic SAF, it's also called HEFA, and this is essentially biofuels that you are putting into your gas tank when you fuel your car. It's something similar to this. It's coming from biological products from fields, or from what we are using is a reused cooking oil as an industry. So the current SAF that we have is like a mixture of different biological products, which are grown on fields, which are then coming through a production process. And we are using recycled oils and things like that. And this is already available, and already something which is flying today, and it's in our products. We have launched a green fare, and we also have launched a product which has a percentage of SAF inside of the ticket price, as well as some offset. So this is already available, and we have already done pretty large offtakes with regards to SAF. We had $250 million offtake with Neste at the end of 2021. We've had another mega deal with OMV and other deals. So these are currently dealing with the challenge of how to get the supply of this, because this is not a never-ending commodity resource. It is still quite scarce. And the problem with biogenic SAF is that it will always be scarce, because there's not ever going to be the availability of used cooking oil in this whole world that we would need to run an entire industry like aviation. So this is something that we know, but it is an interim solution to fly much greener, and it's already existing. It is, however, expensive, and this is disappointing, but it is what it is, and we're in a transition phase, and this is something that we can understand. However, what we also are working with, and you mentioned, Jochen, the Synhelion partnership, we're also working very closely with new types of technologies for sustainable aviation fuel, called power to liquid. We have here power to liquid on the slide, sun to liquid. And if you go back, I'm on slide 4 still. If you go back, power to liquid is essentially understanding you take green electricity. Actually, it can be done with with nuclear, with coal burning and anything, power to liquid, but we mean green power to liquid. You take green energy from solar panels or tidal waves or wind energy, and you then take this electricity and you put it through a whole system of different catalysts and equipment, and with a carbon source in order to turn this into a jet fuel. So an entire production process, and it goes then into a refinery, and then is currently blended with other fossil fuels, but the percentage of clean fuels will then increase and the amount of fossil fuels will decrease. But these two fuels can be mixed together, and this is certified and safe. Currently, we have an international regulation that 50% of fuels in planes still must be fossil fuel, or if you have two engines, one is flying fossil fuel and one is flying sustainable aviation fuel. This is still this way for regulation sake, I think for safety reasons, but it is not chemically needed anymore, and this regulation will tip at one point and will probably be able to fly 100% fossil sustainable aviation fuel. So power to liquid is something which needs to still be scaled and still be commercialized. And essentially, when the green energy supply increases globally, and we have different feedstocks for carbon which are available, either coming from direct air capture from those technologies or coming from right now kind of offstreams of industrial production, so anywhere where carbon is being produced, then you have the opportunity to make power to liquid. If we mentioned the Synhelion deal, or what is the Synhelion deal? So Synhelion is pretty fantastic company, a spin-out from ETH Zurich, based in Zurich, and Gianluca and Philip, the CEOs, have essentially in university discovered with other researchers in the university that you can use this field of mirrors that you can see here on the bottom right to direct extremely high temperature heats into this reactor and to create a solar fuel out of it. It's essentially like power to liquid, but it is not attached to the electric grid, which has a very big benefit. So we were the first ones to offtake the first PTL made in Germany, and now we are the first airline group to offtake the solar fuel, which will be coming very, very soon in terms of the first drops. And then there's a new production being set up in Spain as we speak. So this is extremely exciting and an extremely future-proof new technology that we bank on using. When we talk about fleet renewal and novel aircraft, for fleet renewal, we are talking about the aircraft that you already know, the aircraft that you see at airports and the ones that you're flying in. When you think about, so that's kind of the picture on the left, the half plane and half globe. This is a current plane that you would recognize. So this current plane, if you look under the hood, not all planes are created equal. I'm on slide 5 right now. Not all planes are created equal. It looks the same as the plane which was basically invented 40 years ago, but there's a lot of different technologies under the hood that Boeing and Airbus have been constantly investing into and renewing. Weight is the biggest enemy of aviation. In order to get an aircraft off the ground, you need energy to lift it up, and you need this thrust to be created. And every kilo that you have to take off the ground, you need to burn more energy in order to do so. So any weight-saving technology is definitely what they have been looking for, and they look for using advanced materials, new types of production in order to make things lighter. But then also, when the aircraft is actually flying, it needs to reduce drag in order to get through the air. And this is also key technologies that we look for, and that the current airline manufacturers or aircraft manufacturers have been doing for years and years, because flying requires fuel, and fuel is expensive, whether it's sustainable aviation fuel or fossil fuel. It's all expensive. So that's really the name of the game. of our industry. This will not change. This has always been this kind of efficiency lever, so we continue to do that. It's just that the new fuel is more expensive, so we have even more reason to care about these things. So the fleet renewal is one thing which is very important, but it's not everything. We also expect that there's going to be new types of aircraft coming. And these are, again, all of the hydrogen and the maybe hybrid electric hydrogen together, and having way more electricity in the powertrains in order to differentiate how the power is going through the aircraft and how you're able to leverage the power differently and get efficiencies there. You can see here a couple of examples of the hydrogen Airbus on the top, and then an aircraft called Zero Avia, which is a startup, which is one of the leading ones on the market today, who are doing extreme quick developments and doing test flights and doing special certifications with hydrogen aircraft that are retrofitted on existing aircraft already today. So this one is flying out of Cotswold, the one that you can see below, and this is basically the pioneers. Slide 5. The pioneers which are creating the future aircraft that we might want to fly with. If we go to slide 6, though, we have what it means for an airline in terms of dealing with topics like hydrogen, or maybe electricity as well, because it is a different game for us. We have to operate these aircraft, and these are completely new vehicles that we have never operated before, and they need completely new setups at airports as well. So for airlines and for airports, you have the building of, if you talk about electric, you have to make all of the charging infrastructure, which is what we know from the electrification of cars on the ground through the cities and countries that we're living in. Here on this little picture, you can see what this means in terms of the infrastructure set up as of an airport with regards to a hydrogen setup. So the airport has to build all new infrastructure, and we need to build up the supply chain to get hydrogen, green hydrogen. We need to make green hydrogen. So there's a lot of different players coming into the supply chain which are not scaled and up and running yet. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that you have to operate the aircraft and have to figure out how they work, how the pilots fly them, and then how they're maintained and how the safety procedures are on the ground. So we have the Hydrogen Aviation Lab in Hamburg, which is basically dealing with all of these issues of learning how to deal with hydrogen and doing it for the first time, because nobody in the industry actually knows how this will work. So with regards to retrofit, I mentioned already before, it's all about making the aircraft more aerodynamic and reducing weight through changing parts of the aircraft that we have control over. Lufthansa Technik is able to certify certain new parts of aircraft, and this is here what we mean by retrofit, that we would go into these types of projects. If we go on to slide 8, we have one of the projects which we find the most interesting and the most promising that we've done in the recent times, is that we took the idea from nature of using the skin of a shark as a kind of guiding principle for how to make aircraft have less drag on them. We have developed a riblet technology, which is basically mirroring the skin of a shark, that if you put your hand over it in this direction where the wind blows through, then it's quite smooth. And if you would put your hand up and down, can you go one slide? Yeah, there. Then if you put your hand up and down, then you would feel like a kind of resistance. So Lufthansa Technik developed AeroShark, which is a film that can be put on aircraft with BASF. And this now is being applied to the sides of the aircraft. If you are a curious person, there was, and I don't know if you're a German audience or not, but there's a show called Sendung mit der Maus, the show with the mouse, and the mouse kind of explains all kinds of tech stuff for kids. And it was on last weekend on Sunday on German television, and the AeroShark idea is really well explained in a very cute way on that show. So you guys could check that out if you want. Going into the next thing, we have flight ops efficiency. As you can see by the picture on page 9, this is definitely talking about data-based approaches to reducing emissions. And this is things like making the way that we fly through airspaces more efficient, always using different AI approaches, or even now delving into quantum computing to see if we can generate 1 or 2% more efficient flight routing, or if we can generate better engine performance by measuring the way the vibrations are operating through the sensors of the aircraft, and this kind of stuff. That's what I mean. Figuring out how we can fly different routes most efficiently based on the passenger figures that we have. We have a big development suite called OpsD that we did together with Google, which is really focusing on getting passengers to their destinations on time with the lowest cost, the lowest CO2 output, and utilizing our fleet in the most efficient way possible, even in the face of cancellations due to, I don't know, maintenance issues or weather issues moving in, and really how to make this all work as efficiently as possible. We can go to slide 11, please. So the last block, as I'm getting a little bit time constrained here, the last block that I wanted to talk about is offsetting and green fares. So for the last part, you can see here we have a tree coming out. The classic way for an aviation company to offset in the past was really to plant trees and to try and suck the carbon that we produce back out of the air through different methodologies. So trees is still a fantastic way to reduce carbon, but now we also look at quicker ways to reduce carbon by looking into things like direct air capture, algae farms, collecting carbon or reducing carbon through approaches where it's sucked into oceans. And there's a lot of different things on the technology scope as well that we are very interested in looking at and potentially investing into, or putting it into our offsetting products, so that we can invest into these technologies, which the entire industry needs in the future, and not only our industry, but other industries as well who are quite carbon emitting. We have developed this into a green fare. We're also the first airline group to have a green fare. And the reason that we have done this is because we already started in 2019 with an offsetting program called Compensate as a first mover there. But what we realized was that it's, you know, a classic digitalization knowledge. It's the seamlessness of the experience of buying something is so important. So we had, over the past couple of years and months, a very, very big increase in the amount of people who are interested in offsetting and paying extra to offset the carbon on their flights by putting it into a deep integration. Now we've gone one step further by offering it as a green fare. The green fare has a mix of 20% sustainable aviation fuel and 80% traditional offsetting projects like planting trees in high tree growth locations, and doing these kind of projects. For us, it is important to have a mix which is affordable as a product for the market. But if you would like to have an even more economical way to offset, you can of course choose to plant trees. It's a cheaper version, or 100% trees, 0% SAF. Or if you would like to offset more quickly, then you can choose 100% SAF, 0% trees, and things like that. So we wanted to make it simple, just to make the entire push into paying for cleaner flying for passengers to be able to opt in, to make it easier. And this is something that we have noticed has a huge impact for us. And I think that with this, we are going to move over to questions. I will let the slide rest maybe on slide number 2, as we skipped it over it beforehand. And I would take your questions.
All right, Erin, thank you for this interesting presentation. With such topic, there's normally a ton of questions, and I myself would like to start with the first one. Erin, you talked about alternative fuels for aviation. And when it comes to the airline industry, honestly, this question is definitely one of the most pressing and one of the most interesting fields for us, especially on a Greentech conference. Petrol-based fuels to offset those with carbon neutral fuels sounds incredibly interesting to us, and with big potential. So you talked about your cooperation with the climate protection agency Atmosphere, which, as I read, has already started producing carbon neutral aviation fuel. Could you talk a little more about this and how this is going to develop in the upcoming years?
Yeah, so the Atmosphere project is based in North Germany. It's called Werther. I'm not able to pronounce it because I'm not a German, and it's there's a lot of consonants in the last part of the world, but it's Wertle, Wertle, something like that, near Emsen. So it's in the north part of Germany, kind of close to Hanover. And this is essentially the first PTL demonstration, which has actually produced from a refinery after drops of sustainable aviation fuel. There's a kind of messy video on my LinkedIn where I smell it, I get it all over my hands, I like figure out how it smells, how it feels like, and I describe it, but it's kind of, I make a mess on my hands and whatever. This is actually fuel which has been produced in a synthetic gas form as a PTL, so it's coming out as a gaseous particles, then is sent to a refinery, and then is produced from a gas into a liquid, and this is then mixed with some kind of additives and aromatics which are still legally needed, and then these are fueled into an aircraft. Don't be so excited that your aircraft has all kinds of percentages of this in it. It is a very, very small production, but the idea is that these are breakthrough technology moments which are proving that this is actually working. And when the drops come out of there, they go to be tested and to see if this is then working from a molecular level, if it is exactly the way that it's meant to be, and it is. Then you will take larger amounts of this, you will put it into engines on the ground normally and test it. We have engines which are not attached to aircraft in our hangars in Hamburg, and there's other facilities at DLR, etc. And then when that is then done, then it is kind of certified and goes into the supply chain. And our SAF has now gone into the NATO pipeline in Europe, which was a project done by Brussels Airlines and Brussels Airport. And this is also, from a political perspective, an absolute breakthrough, because when that happens for the first time, any SAF which would like to be needs to come into the logistics supply chain, can go through a pipeline and didn't have to be trucked like it did before. So this is also like a huge breakthrough that happened about 6 weeks ago, or January or something like this, which is a huge win for the entire industry. So also important.
Bertie has a question, I'm sure.
Oh yes, of course. Erin, thank you very much. I would love to learn more about the shark skin project, and I'm definitely going to see the Nanometer Mouse episode. But for now, can you tell us when we as consumers, as passengers, can expect to fly in planes with shark skin applied? And can we tell it by looking from the outside if it has been applied?
No, you can't. So I don't know if they plan on putting any marketing on the side. I think they should do, but I'm not sure if that has happened. Swiss aircraft have shark skin on it already, AeroShark, and Lufthansa cargo aircraft have AeroShark on it. The application is done in kind of like square meters, and they would put it on and they apply. You can see it on Sending with the Mouse. It's really well explained, and they would like kind of put it on like you put your film on your smartphone, on the front of your smartphone, with like to make sure there's no air bubbles, etc. So it's exactly the same as this, and they have to measure it and make sure that it's going exactly with the wind flow. how the airflow passes over the side of the aircraft, and the aircraft is curvy, as you know. So this is all applied and cut to specification. And the cool thing about AeroShark is that you can put on as little or as much in one sitting as you want. So it will still, you can put on like 1 square and it will help a little bit, or you can put on 50 squares and it will help more, and you can put on 500 squares and it's quite good. So there's certain parts of the aircraft which are certified, and certain parts like around the wing where it's not possible, which have none. But the cool thing about it is that you can, every time the aircraft goes in for maintenance, that like line maintenance or whatever maintenance downtimes when it's not flying, then you can put like a few more stickers on it. Basically, you just like clean the aircraft, put it on. It's the same as your smartphone. It's the same,
Right. Okay.
not the same product, but it's the same effect.
Any plans when Lufthansa or the other group airlines are going to apply the shark skin technology?
Yeah, like next, like it's in process, and as soon as there's capacity and as soon as they're on the ground, then they also get. So all of the airlines are going kind of in a row, but actually we're not doing it by brand. We're also doing it by aircraft type, because when you certify a certain aircraft type, then you would like to do the entire group, anyone who has this aircraft type, because the certification is the hardest part.
I see.
Unfortunately, Erin, we have to move on. I'm sure we'd have tons more, to learn about the future of the aviation and how we achieve net zero flying, which is basically not happening soon. But there are technologies out there, and thank you again for joining us here on our conference and sharing those insights. And we'll keep up the great work and cooperation with you guys. So I'll hope to see you soon, Erin. All the best.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thanks, guys.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Great having you, Erin.